Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is create a wall on which to display 2 of our stickers. Your other 4 stickers, those are for your own personal use after you've taken the picture to submit for Kami, for your Kami assignment. But 2 of these are going to go on a final composition where you're going to create a like a fake wall, so that way you can stick them on here, and that allows Miss Braun and I something that we can use for art shows, exhibits, and displays. So I have a resource for you. On the next slide, you will see a variety of walls that you can look at to draw. However, these are not your only wall options. There are plenty of aged walls that you can look at on Google, but this gives you a variety of textures that you can choose from. I like to see how in this picture there's a lot of layers, there's bricks separating, there are cracks in the walls. You can take and choose little different elements from all of these and completely come up with your own wall. So I'm going to do just that, kind of like a little bit of everything. Let's talk about some requirements. Your wall must simulate texture, so you need to have something that looks like a visual texture. And then you also need to blend colors. We're going to be using one of my favorite coloring materials, these Crayola art sticks. Art sticks are exactly the same material that come inside of a colored pencil, but it's an entire stick of that stuff rather than having the wood around it, so you never have to sharpen it. So that'll make your coloring process go a lot faster. We have several neutral colors here to work with. A couple different grays, a couple different browns, gray, black, white. That's awesome. You're probably gonna use this quite a bit for your wall drawing. But we also have full range of typical rainbow colors. Let's see here, like so. One thing I want you to feel comfortable doing with this is not just relying on your neutral colors. I want you to be able to create your own neutral colors by blending these very vibrant rainbow colors. Let's talk about what complementary colors are. Complementary colors are across from each other on the color wheel. So when you blend them, they actually create neutrals, sort of like when you take black and white. Black and white are also across from each other on a value scale, and when you blend them together, they make gray. Well, your neutral colors kind of do the same thing. They make more of like a neutral brown. So when you take your bright, bright red and mix it with the bright, bright green, you get more of this brownish, maroonish color in between. Same thing, blue to orange, there's a nice tannish brown. Yellow to purple, that's kind of a muddy brown too. So I want you to feel comfortable blending all these colors together when you're making your wall designs. Here's kind of like a swatch I did earlier, playing around with a whole bunch of different colors. When you're blending colors, it makes your picture a lot more exciting for the viewer to look at. It doesn't look so flat. Also take note that I was using the colors to shade things too. In this whole paper that I'm holding, I never once touched black or white. So where you see things that are darker, it's because I use my darker colors, like purples and blues. When you see neutral colors, I created those by blending complementary colors. You can also keep your wall pretty light colored, but notice how I'm still blending those colors together. There's like little streaks of like yellowish, purples, blues in here, but I'm just not pressing as hard. So you can create that sort of effect by dragging the color sticks over the surface of your paper sideways like this. But if you want to create more intense details like cracks in walls and things like that, then you're going to want to hold the stick like a colored pencil and press really hard. So I'm going to start just with a little pencil sketch so I kind of know where I want all my different textures to go. Okay, I have very lightly sketched out where I'm going to have like a sort of plastery texture and brick coming through here. You can have it all plaster, cinder blocks, brick, whatever sort of texture makes you happy. But I do want to start blending some colors on here. So to get some good overall color before I get too detailed, I'm just going to start laying down some big swatches. I'm not being too picky about which colors I'm using. I want it to look like a very aged wall. I did stop to get a scrap piece of paper because my table is creating these patterns underneath. Ah, that's much better. Much smoother. You can also pretend that you are creating the edge of a wall that had once been painted. So if you want some more intense colors, that's totally fine. Like this one example here, I really like because it's almost like you can see a whole bunch of different hints of colors that used to be there. All right, I am going to use a little bit of like a neutral gray. Big gash here so you can see where the edge of my plaster and my brick is. All right, I'll come back and treat this later. I actually want to create sort of like a crack in the middle of this plastery area here, sort of like this. This is a common question that people have. So when I do this, I'm going to start with a darker color like blue, black, purple, green would work also. And I'm going to start by making sort of like a little crosshairs like this. So I have 3 intersecting lines. The biggest part of that hole or crack in the wall is going to be right in the center. So create like a little shape at the center of those crosshairs. It's almost like the center of a spider web. And then as the cracks stretch out from that big shape, the lines are going to go from thick to thin. And you can also have some fun here and choose maybe the cracks spread out in 2 veins. I've seen some people create walls where they create this crack shape and then they also have like more stone or brick underneath, which is a really cool effect. I'm just going to have a giant hole in the wall. All right, and now I'm going to just keep blending some colors and making that crack in the wall a little bit darker. All right, I'm pleased with how this is going so far, but I do see a lot of really intense green and blue, so what I'm going to do to kind of calm that down is mix in their complements. So the complement to green would be red, and the complement to blue would be orange. So I need to add some of these warm colors. Get some of the edges dark enough, then I'm going to pull in my black color stick. Now I'm going to do kind of the same thing along this edge where I have the plaster next to the brick. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is take one of my dark, I think I have black right now, one of my dark color sticks and sort of pull down from this little ledge here. I'm not going to go the opposite direction because I'm thinking about like if I'm standing and looking at this wall and the sun is beating down on it, it's going to create a shadow from this plaster that's sticking out the farthest. So that'll just help me to create some depth. Same thing, I had hoped to create another piece of plaster here. And so the next thing I'm going to do is work on building this piece of plaster so it looks like it's sitting on top of this brick wall. All right, I don't know if you can tell, but I actually really love making these faux walls. But I am going to go ahead and put some brick texture in here just so that way I have some contrast between textures. Again, all of these things are just options. I just don't want you to have boring flat walls. No boring flat walls. And I also want you to just practice using all the colors that you have in your sets. Really good painters do not paint with their colors straight from the tubes. They're always blending and making their own colors, and a great way of practicing that is just with how you apply color with colored pencils. So I'm going to now basically do what I did here on these 2 sections with all these little individual bricks. The beautiful thing here is that the bricks can be all different sizes. If you ever look at really old brick walls, they were made with handmade bricks. So they are not all the same sizes. Typically though, what you don't want is to have the mortar in between You don't want to have those going in straight grid lines. So even here with like the cinder blocks, notice how there's a block and then there's a the conjoining line of the two blocks underneath. So think about how you draw like hopscotch. You have a block, you have two blocks, you have a block, you have two blocks. So those little mortar lines are sort of always going in the middle of the previous row of bricks. Now I say always, but not always, always. Sometimes with these handmade bricks, you occasionally find areas, I just saw one, you occasionally find areas where the mortar lines up, but eventually they're going to run into another brick. That's what helps to keep the wall sturdy. So I'm going to keep all that in mind while I start to sketch out these bricks. All right, I am pleased with this. Yours does not have to have quite so many elements, but just remember that at the very least, your wall should simulate texture. So I have a couple different textures here. And you should also use color blending. No flat walls. I did tons of color blending in here. So if you take a look up close, you can see a whole lot of hatching, cross hatching, even kind of like a little scribbly technique that I used to help blend all those things together. Using those scribbly techniques also helps with the texture itself, but also going between using the flat side and then the angled side of the color stick all helps to add some dimension to my wall. So now I have my wall done, so it is time to adorn it with my stickers. Well, I'm going to go ahead and peel the back off of these, and I will tell you that it's a tricky thing. It does not require long fingernails to do this, but actually some really rigid fingerprints really help. Because if you slowly rub your finger over the edge of the paper like this, you will eventually get it to peel apart. Some of the sticker papers peel apart easier than others. Just be patient. So I finally have a nice composition that is ready to display. Thank you guys for working so hard on this project. Please don't forget to take a picture of this final composition. You should also have a picture of all 6 of your stickers, which hopefully you took before you took this one, and your 2 stencils, and then also don't forget to take a picture of your planning sheet, which you only need to have this side of your planning sheet.